All right, we are live with the Working Fans Podcast. It's the man they call Dave. It's not producer Joe. He's out this week. We have AJ, the Hulkster Strangebrew. And the first thing I want to talk about this week is the WWE releases. We had a lot of releases yesterday come out of nowhere, although maybe not so much out of nowhere, because obviously there's the big merger, and a lot of times when companies merge, there is going to be cost cutting. But we haven't had any WWE releases in a while. AJ, any names surprise you?
Not really. I think Dolph Ziggler was probably the biggest surprise to us due to the fact that we have been hoping for Dolph for so long and they've held on to him. Yeah. I'm sure some of the names will be surprises just because you probably didn't remember the WWE still had them.
Right. No, I mean, who do you think on your short list here out of these names has the biggest upside in terms of getting picked up by AEW or another company?
I mean, I would think Dolph Ziggler, to be honest with you. I think that Dolph Ziggler obviously is such a big name. It's a lot of them just I couldn't believe we're still working. Dana Brooke has been she's been basically spotlighted on recent NXT. So I guess she would be a little bit of a surprise. It could have some upside to her. Mustafa Ali definitely got some upside. Once again, he's been in a storyline on NXT where he's supposed to be part of the story this week coming up.
Yeah, he has a match coming up with Dom. Was scheduled for WWE No Mercy. So
yes, so that's going to have to be changed now.
Yeah, very interesting. That Dom might get a new opponent. I mean, this happened once in the past with what was the guy's name? Drake Maverick. Remember him from he ended up going to Impact and stuff too, and they ended up
making such a big noise for him. Well, if you remember, he started with Impact. He was Rockstar Spud on Impact before he was with NXT.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and he did such a big thing. I don't think that's going to happen here. I think Ali is going to make some waves wherever he goes. He's one to look out for. Other than Mustafa Ali, I would say I agree with you. Dolph's brothers in AEW.
I mean, Riddick Moss with Emma could be something somewhere. They're actually a real life couple.
Yeah, and Emma alone, like Emma, I think is such a potential for any women's division.
Well, she's been a rock star everywhere she goes, except for the WWE.
Right.
And even in the WWE, she had a following as Emma, but they just never seem to be able to do anything with her. No. I know you're upset that your boy Top Dollar is no longer going to holla, but
you know what? I think there's a chance he could do something somewhere too, just given his size.
Yeah. Well, what about Elias, Rick Boogs?
Yeah.
I mean, Elias was over.
Sure.
They just stopped him.
Boogs has incredible strength. I think he's got charisma. So there's a lot of these guys that I think were legitimately lost in WWE that have a chance. I do want to put on the flip side too, though. AEW is extremely oversaturated right now with a lot of talent themselves, even though they just lost CM Punk. And it's not so much that a lot of these guys could be home runs in AEW, but I think we've seen now too, it's not an automatic home run. Like in the beginning.
Remember, you also have Ring of Honor.
You do?
You have Impact Wrestling. And you have people like Aaliyah. Aaliyah is a good young talent. Unfortunately, she seemed more focused on riding horses than she did on her wrestling career. Though, I got to tell you, the funniest thing, we talked about Emma. The funniest thing is right before she got released, Emma actually put, because there's an event now coming to Perth where they're going to actually do a pay-per-view from Perth, Australia. So she was like, finally, a dream come true. I'll be able to be on this pay-per-view in my home country. And literally right after that, she had to put something up on Instagram that goes, never mind, I've been released.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. One other thing I was just going to say before we'll get on to our next topic. As far as the WWE go too, I mean, if I was Billy Corgan, like, man, maybe now would be a time to back up some of that money truck and try to get some of this talent. Like, he's a guy that has the money out there that just hasn't seemed to really truly want to invest in it.
I think Elias would do good. I think Rick Boogs would do good with them. You could always bring in Shelton Benjamin, who's a tremendous veteran.
Yeah.
Mace has a great look. I'll tell you what, one that did surprise me, that might not have surprised you quite as much, was Mansoor, because of their relationship with the Middle East, with Dubai, and that kind of surprised me a little bit, because it's nice to have that. They literally got rid of both of their athletes that are Muslim athletes for the next time they go over there.
Yeah, it's surprising, especially given the merger and how big Saudi Arabia for them. But AJ, I want to move on to other topics. So much stuff happened this week that this kind of fell into the background a little bit after the releases, but big news, WWE SmackDown returning to USA Network. I think it's interesting. It's good in the sense we're going to have both shows, at least at the time being, on USA. But overall, with a lot of positive stuff happening with WWE, I have to say I kind of took this as somewhat of a negative because ultimately Fox was a really nice home for them.
So I wasn't surprised by this because Rupert Murdoch actually lost control of Fox. Fox actually switched hands this week.
Yeah.
And with Fox switching hands, I didn't think that the new guy sounded like he was willing to invest in wrestling. Like he saw it as the go-to, like Rupert Murdoch did.
Yeah, I was listening to Eric Bischoff, and he was saying when he had his brief run in WWE Creative, they had just got on Fox, if you remember. And he said he talked to a few higher-ups, not like some of the higher-ups, and he said the impression he always got was that for whatever reason, right or wrong, Fox had probably unrealistic high expectations of what WWE was going to do on there. And
although their numbers delivered every week,
they did like 2, 3, and they're getting.
Well, they got to a point where they were beating Raw.
But apparently, according to Bischoff, what he had heard was they were expecting around 4 to 5 million a week. So he said so.
Well, that's just stupid.
Yeah, that wasn't going to probably happen. And so then it became all the money Fox was paying. You're probably not going to shell out the same amount of money.
That's dumber than my Jets investing in Zach Wilson.
Well, that being said, SmackDown will be coming to USA next year. I got to say, I guess the next big question will be, do you think Raw and everything will stay on there as well?
Oh, I think it will. I think they'll keep everything together. I think now that Endeavors actually has the majority of it, I don't think that they're going to be quite as quick to jump stations as Vince McMahon would be. Vince McMahon was more of a chance taker, whereas I see Endeavor seems to be more methodical. And I think that they like to stick the path that they go.
And there is talk, too, that they're going to get a couple 4 or 5 primetime specials on NBC with this deal, too.
I'd love to see a Saturday Night's Main Event. In case you guys are wondering what I'm holding up, this is actually Dubby's Shaker. If you want a cool shaker and you want a great product, this shaker right here will actually make your Dubby so smooth. Because let's face it, brother, sometimes when you got to face that big stinky giant, and it comes crashing down in the neighborhood, you got to pick it up. And Dubby will do that for you. So make sure you go to the Dubby website, put in fans working as your promo. You'll save 10%. You'll get not just great energy, but you'll also get it jitter free. So if you're somebody like myself who's already a little off the hook to begin with, the last thing you need is those jitters. So pick some up, put in fans working for your code. Let them know that you saw it here. And I recommend the Calio cream. It's what keeps me hyped up in the gym on those long days. And thank you very much.
All right. And something that's got us hyped up, we've talked about this, AJ, before we went on air a couple times this week, the writer's strike and what this could mean for WWE and in wrestling in general, but I would say in particular for WWE. there's a lot of talent we could see possibly coming back because of this.
I would like to point out we 100% support the WGA. We are not using any scab writers. This is 100% just us. I know that's hard to believe. But good for them, and hopefully it comes back soon. But it's worked out great for wrestling because wrestling now has The Rock back, John Cena back. Apparently we're going to get Batista back. So any person who's been acting and has been too good for wrestling because they're too busy making millions of dollars in Hollywood, all of a sudden has found their love of wrestling again. So good for us.
Stone Cold Steve Austin's another person we could possibly see. You know, I mean, he just talked about doing one more match anyway, and that would be about it if given the times right. But I mean, I would think The Rock, like you said, Batista. You know, I mean, right now Rock just made the one appearance, and we've all kind of jumped the gun. But I think, like, knowing what we know, that it certainly does seem possible we could see some big matches ahead of time.
Well, John Cena's in an actual storyline tonight on SmackDown. He's wrestling, he's tag teaming with AJ Styles, going up against Jimmy Uso and his brother, the assassin, the enforcer of the bloodline, Solo Sikoa. And to see him in this big of a storyline, it's got to lead you to believe that maybe we're going to see a John Cena Roman Reigns again.
I believe they're just facing off tonight. I don't think it's actual match.
I thought it said that they announced a tag match tonight was the last thing that I saw.
Well, let's find out. In the meantime, why don't you tell me? Are you going to look that up?
Yeah, I'm looking it up for you right now.
All right, so let's look that up.
I was just reading the article before I came on. Yeah.
All right, WWE SmackDown preview. In the meantime, I'll talk a little bit more about this writer's strike. Yeah, one of the names that AJ mentioned too was Batista talked about coming back. Batista, that could be a very interesting storyline. And, you have stuff with him possibly. Imagine that. Batista, Rock, and John Cena all teaming up together for like a mega event.
So here's the story for you, Dave, real quick. Paul Jordan from PW Insider, huge tag team match set for tonight's WWE Friday Night SmackDown. Jimmy Uso and Solo will face off against John Cena and AJ Styles tonight on SmackDown.
All right, great. Then again, we got Cena in a main event tonight, teaming up with AJ Styles. You know, you could see The Rock back. You could see Batista back.
Well, once again, it's going to bring views because you don't know if The Rock's going to be back. He wasn't announced before the last time, so that's going to draw views. You've got Cena in a tag team main event. That's going to bring in views. It's incredible what it could do. Rock freaking A. What they get? Over 103 million views of the clip of him coming back on YouTube. I mean, that's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. So the writer's strike has already been a huge, huge plus for WWE. But let's talk about another big plus for WWE. Let's talk about the big thing going on, and that's the WWE UFC merger that started last week, TKO. And obviously, this is going to be a huge thing. And the title of the episode this week is the top 3 things we want to see from the UFC WWE merger. AJ, I took the liberty of writing some stuff down. Would you like me to go first?
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So this is some stuff I would like to see, just as a fan. I think they would make you got to do simple thing first. Maybe run a few commercials on each other's pay-per-views. Don't overdo it. UFC fans don't want to see a ton of WWE stuff. WWE fans don't want to see a ton of UFC.
Yeah, you don't want to oversaturate it.
Yeah, just put a quick little promo to fight a big pay-per-view. Maybe occasionally, maybe garner a big 5-minute segment or something, to profile somebody. Maybe get your audience used to somebody. That could be something you could do. A bigger thing that I think is very likely, the most likely on my list for number 2, is making a combined event. So they've talked about this, like they're coming to Australia. Maybe, obviously, I think that's already going to be on a Saturday, but let's say it wasn't. Let's say you were going to have that show on a Sunday. You could do a UFC pay-per-view on a Saturday. UFC's always done stuff on a Saturday. WWE could be back on a Sunday, and you could have a Friday night SmackDown. You could have 3 big events in Australia. You could do this in the UK. And that could be a way to really do some big synergy for these 2 companies.
Well, you could do the same thing with WrestleMania weekend. you could actually do a big event for WrestleMania weekend. Maybe have the Friday night, have a big pay-per-view for UFC in that same area. And then let's say you're in Vegas, for instance, for I know we're in Philly this year coming up, but let's say they put a spectacle together in Vegas. They could always do a Friday night fight, or they could break it up even more. They could do Friday night is night one of WrestleMania, have a huge UFC pay-per-view on Saturday, and have the night two of WrestleMania on Sunday night, and sell a ticket where you can go to all three events and have an experience the whole weekend long.
Absolutely. And my final pick, I want to see this. I'm the only one talking about this, so it's probably not going to happen. But I want to see a special MMA fight. You don't have to drug test them. I want to see Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar all roided up fight each other in an MMA fight in the UFC. You can do something where you're in training camps, but you can run promos and you can run video packages on the WWE, which they do well, and it could be part of some storyline, but ultimately it leads into a real UFC fight, maybe for UFC 300.
Now, Dave, I know you're holding back. You actually eliminated one of the ones that you wanted to see. He was telling me before we went on the air that he wanted to see Dana White in a singlet, all baby oiled up. Yeah, but apparently, make his list for the show. It's fine. Yeah. That's hey, we all have dream matches. It's fine.
It's an alternate list. It's an alternate on there. Do you have some stuff you'd like to see?
Yeah, I agree with you with the combo thing. I like to leave them more separate. To be honest with you, I'd be happy if they actually stayed away from each other. That's keep them separated because they are completely different things. I enjoy both. Right. However, I don't want one taking away from the other. And I think that could happen. I think something you could do is have UFC fighters actually come out to the events for WWE, have them in the audience, maybe have them come to the ring with somebody. Same thing for WWE. Have them walk the fighters to the ring, something like that. Maybe give them a quick promo for the fighter. Something like that is doable, but I don't want anything that crisscrosses them too much because I think you could take away from both sports. You could expose the UFC for not having enough entertainment, and you could expose the WWE for realism. So you want to be careful with them.
All right. And since we talked a lot about everything's been pretty much dominated by WWE this week, I think I forgot to tell AJ this, but we're going to close with AEW Grand Slam. I thought it was a pretty good event, and I just wanted to talk to you, AJ, and we don't have to go in depth of this event, but what were some moments that stuck out for you about AEW Grand Slam?
Hey, real quick, one last thing before we talk about that, and I do love that we're ending with that. There was big news out of the PC this week. Somebody who's been missing from the WWE for a while with a severe back injury.
I slipped him in. I slipped him in when we were talking about Batista. You were looking up SmackDown. Randy Orton is potentially coming back.
Oh, I didn't hear you while I was. This had nothing to do with the writer's strike either, so that might not have caught my ear.
Right. I was just saying potential storylines. You could have Randy Orton and Batista back together.
Yeah, but just good to hear that Randy Orton is actually on the mend and might be able to work again, because there were people that were speculating that the back injury was bad enough where he might not ever be able to work again. But all right, back to Grand Slam. My favorite match, believe it or not, I enjoyed Toni Storm. Toni Storm is actually hilarious to me. My favorite pure wrestling match was not Toni Storm and Saraya, obviously, but Toni Storm is absolutely killing me with this character. For a pure wrestling standpoint, you either had to enjoy MJF versus Samoa Joe or Claudio and Eddie Kingston. To see Eddie Kingston overcome his demons and to get the opportunity to have both belts, absolutely love that. Eddie Kingston deserves it. We are big Eddie Kingston fans here. We're also huge Claudio fans here, but those two absolutely tore it down to me.
Yeah, no, great match. Eddie and Claudio was probably my favorite match in terms of. I thought, like you, Toni and Saraya were very entertaining. Toni in particular, I love her Hollywood old school black and white entrance. I think that's great. I think she's
and the fact that she's going batshit crazy, coming out with the shoes and the freaking. She's been having that thing with Renee where she keeps going tits up and freaking watch out for the shoes, and she walks off the interview and all of a sudden a shoe comes flying at Renee.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed the Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara because it brought us back to Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho. Thank you, Excalibur, for pointing that out to us ahead of time.
Right.
But and then he literally did what Chris Jericho did to Shawn Michaels, and even him leaving and going and joining the family is kind of a cool thing because Sammy Guevara is on that line. He's on that line to that next level where the right move could make him a megastar.
For sure. For me, the other big moments coming this out is Ray Phoenix and Jon Moxley. Ray Phoenix with a surprise championship win. Gotta believe that could be because of Jon Moxley's injury, which is now, I think I heard Wrestling Observer say that it was believed to be a minor concussion, which is thankful. But apparently Mox had said, "No, this match is over," and nobody picked up on it. So,
yeah, let me tell you something. For Mox to be able to say, "Hey, this match is over," we're talking about one of the toughest guys in the business. For him to know that he's injured enough where you have to actually stop that match, to me, mild concussion, I find it hard to believe it's a mild concussion for Mox to be able to go, "Hey, yeah, that's I believe he was hurt because he's not one of those guys who gets a hangnail and it's like, I'm done." I think that good for Ray Phoenix. I don't look for a long title reign due to the fact that I don't believe the belt was supposed to be put on him. But hey, good for him.
And MJF and Samoa Joe main event. MJF chokes out Samoa Joe like he said he would.
Well, with that clean with that clean chokehold.
How about the tribute to Bret Hart before this? Did you see that?
I enjoyed that. The tribute to Bret Hart was very good. Well done. I also love the fact that Samoa Joe, even though he pushed Adam Cole out of the way, he kept, because he's been somewhat of a babyface, and he's been getting cheered by the crowd.
For sure.
And he kept that babyface kind of by actually shaking hands with MJF afterwards. There were 2 injuries in that match. Both of them actually happened to people that weren't wrestling. Adam Cole apparently sprained his ankle jumping down off the platform to the ground.
Right.
If you watch the match, you'll see him limping literally the rest of the way and barely able to put weight on the ankle. The other one looked like it could have been a work at first, but the referee, when he took the fall out of the ring, screwed up his knee pretty bad. And if you watch him the rest of the way, he can barely get up. So it's interesting to see 2 people that weren't actually wrestling both injured in the match.
Yeah, no, it's wild. Hopefully Cole's not too bad. We'll see what happens because I'd hate to see that storyline get changed because that's
what do you think of what they're doing with Roderick?
I've actually turned the corner and I really like it now. Like I think that he's been so good at it. Like at first I thought he was just a dork, but now he's embraced it so well. And when he's just like, Adam, and then even Bennett talking about neck health, national health, and he says, if somebody tells you they don't appreciate it, you punch them in the wiener, and then you pile drive him, and he drops down like he's doing a pile driver. Like, I think this is the best thing.
Yeah, I think the Kingdom are doing fantastic, and they are now going to be, by the way, wrestling to be the number 1 contenders for the Ring of Honor tag titles, which would make them the number 1 contenders for Adam Cole and MJF, which is an interesting storyline.
Absolutely. And you know what else is an interesting storyline?
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling lives.